Ask any roller coaster enthusiast which roller coaster is their favorite, and there's a good chance they will name an RMC creation. Better yet, you're even more likely to hear one of the two existing RMC hybrids that top 200 feet, Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point and Zadra at Energylandia. In 2021, Iron Gwazi will open as the third at Busch Gardens, Tampa. So, let's dive into what makes these so special. It's time for a coaster comparison. RMC is known for their extreme airtime moments, fun inversions, and overall just expertly made rides. They've taken old, rough, and small-scale woodies and turned them into world-class thrill machines. However, when the rare case comes where RMC gets to add the eye-popping stats to their ride, they become absolutely amazing. Steel Vengeance was the first hyper built by the company, a conversion of Mean Streak. Zadra followed, but wasn't a conversion, but instead a ground-up hyper. Finally, Iron Gwazi, built from what was left of the dueling woody Gwazi, will be the third. So all three of these rides sit at right about 205 and 206 feet tall, as well as between 74 and 76 miles per hour. The biggest difference comes when it's in length of the rides. Iron Gwazi will open at just over 4,000 feet, which is significantly shorter than Zadra at 4,300 and especially the 5,700 feet on Steel Vengeance. As for inversions, Iron Gwazi will only feature 2 versus Zadra's 3 and Steel Vengeance's 4. However, Iron Gwazi will be the steepest of the 3 at a 91-degree descent versus the other 2 which top out at 90. Overall, most of the stats are pretty similar on these rides. All 3 of these coasters feature a stall and either some form of barrel roll or zero-G roll. They also all feature some outer bank hills, wave turns, and quick airtime hills. So even the elements throughout seem pretty similar, although Iron Gwazi's downward barrel roll seems very unique, and Zadra has by far the largest stall of the 3, while Steel Vengeance just has the most quantity of inversions and elements. Where these rides seem to differ is the focus of the ride itself. Steel Vengeance is built for its length and airtime, a relentless back-to-back barrage of out-of-your-seat moments. In fact, it owns the world record for most airtime on any coaster, beating out the Voyage at Holiday World with nearly 30 seconds of airtime. On the other hand, you have Zadra, which is all about pacing. As great as Steel Vengeance is, it's nothing compared to how fast Zadra can run. Zadra picks up so much feet per second, it's insane. It's by far the best paced RMC in the world. Gwazi seems to sit right up there with Zadra as a pacing machine. Look at the feet per second of each ride, courtesy of Airtime Thrills. Steel Vengeance starts at covering 75.5 feet per second, compared to Gwazi at 86.7 feet per second, and finally Zadra at 93.8 feet per second. Now, part of that is Steel Vengeance having more track, which leads to a slower ending. But for this reason, Iron Gwazi and Zadra both have a ride time of about 1 minute and 50 seconds, while Steel Vengeance sits at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. That's 40 more seconds of ride time versus the other two. That's longer than a full ride on King Ka. Now, to be fair to Zadra, if you were to extrapolate the pacing to match the length of Steel Vengeance, it would still finish the ride about 10 to 15 seconds faster, depending on the slowdown due to friction and air resistance and all that. Now, from a design standpoint, Zadra really had an advantage here being a ground-up hybrid coaster for RMC. They didn't have to design around any existing tracks, supports, or foundations. Iron Gwazi, on the other hand, only saved about 25% of the wooden structure and 75% of the concrete foundations. For Steel Vengeance, I couldn't find an exact number, but it's quite clear just looking at the structure of Steel Vengeance and Mean Streak that it definitely saved much more than Gwazi. Just looking at the photos, my guess would be around nearly 85%. The layout almost completely follows the original Mean Streak footprint. So at the end of the day, which is really the king of coasters? Honestly, I'm not too sure. I've only ridden Steel Vengeance so far, and it's far and away my #1 roller coaster. The choice really seems to vary between the 3, coming down to your preference of length and quantity versus speed and pacing. At the end of the day, RMC is going to deliver an amazing ride. It just depends on which way you want to turn the dial. Do you want it to be over a little sooner with that extreme pacing, or do you want it to last a little longer even if that means the train slows down on that final lap around the course? Personally, I have a feeling that Steel Vengeance will remain at the top for me even when I get to ride the other 2, just due to its sheer amount of ejector airtime. Zadra and Gwazi both seem to have a handful of their own amazing airtime, but Steel Vengeance is unmatched in quantity and overall just quality. I also tend to value a long ride. Not to say the other two are short by any means, but 2 minutes and 30 seconds is longer than most B&M hypers. And I will admit there's a very strong case for all three, and the day may come where I ride them all and prefer the pacing and sanity of the other two. The first time I rode Steel Vengeance, I was absolutely stunned, and speeding it up over 20% to Zadra's pacing doesn't even seem possible. Obviously that comes at the cost of some elements and such, but overall, I think this is a race that's really too close to call unless you get to experience all the rides. Unfortunately, there are currently only 3 of these hyper hybrids out there, with no 4th announced as of yet. Are there any possible conversions out there that you think could do it? Or instead, is there a park out there with the funds, space, and desire to go out and build a ground-up hyper hybrid like Zadra? Personally, I don't really see any conversion reaching that 200-foot mark at this point. All the other coasters seem either too small or maybe too old, or maybe a conversion would go more the Twisted Colossus route on a dueling coaster instead of Iron Gwazi. On the other hand, with a mild price tag of only $16 million US, Zadra was nearly half the cost of new B&Ms. Perhaps SeaWorld Entertainment sees value there and will bring another one to another one of their parks. Personally, a Williamsburg Hyper Hybrid really intrigues me. Maybe a spiritual successor to Dragonfire. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today. Which coaster do you think is the best, and is there any ride out there that can top this class of hyper hybrids? Big shout out to Airtime Thrills and his awesome videos covering prime ride time. I've linked them below. As always, follow Island Coasters on Instagram for daily content, news, and updates. If you want to support the channel, drop a like or subscribe. It really makes a difference. Until next time, that's all from the shores of Island Coasters.